Bitcoin still costs less than $500,000 per coin, and 0.1 Bitcoin could soon make you rich. Listen closely. The former CEO of Binance even believes that Bitcoin will rise much further, and a trader has mentioned completely different numbers, which we'll talk about in a moment. And Christine Lagarde from the European Central Bank is warning about Bitcoin. All the details are in the video. In the past, we would get news like someone is considering regulations for cryptocurrencies, thinking about Bitcoin, or there's an application for a Bitcoin ETF. The price would rise, the application would be rejected, and the market would react as usual. Or a new crypto exchange would launch and offer a $15 bonus for new signups. Sometimes an exchange would collapse, but the money would be returned to those affected. Remember, for example, ages ago with Mt. Gox, they're finally paying people out now, and some analysts are now warning about these payouts, and that's basically it. Still, prices often rose over several days, even without much drama. In crypto, there weren't that many bad news stories, and I think that negative news pushed prices down much more strongly than good news pushed them up. I just can't believe that news like this comes out, that people talk about it, and then things just go on as if nothing happened. And I refuse to believe that this information seeps into the crypto market and no one reacts, no one buys Bitcoin, and prices even fall. That's exactly what we're seeing right now. And when I got into crypto, there was a lot of hope and energy and the idea of what Bitcoin could be used for, and of course, other cryptocurrencies as well. A lot of that was based on the idea that Bitcoin would serve as a currency or as digital gold. That was the main narrative. The use as a currency became more realistic with the Lightning Network because it enables lightning-fast Bitcoin transactions. And there are all these people and analysts talking about it, but no one seems to be putting real money into it or seriously developing it further. At least, they're not making much noise about it. And I think it wouldn't even take 6 months to make this thing really, really big. Sure, a few apps are already using it, but for everyone to adopt it, that should have happened years ago. And the idea that Bitcoin is like digital gold is getting stronger and stronger. Now imagine governments, companies, and corporations buying up massive amounts of Bitcoin to create a treasury or a strategic reserve. Or they grab as much as they can because they expect Bitcoin to become the foundation for a new fiat currency in the future. For example, they could say, we only print as much money as we have in Bitcoin. These kinds of ideas basically exist. I just can't believe it's not a big topic, that such discussions simply get lost in the crypto world and the price doesn't really move at all. Changpeng Zhao, the former CEO of Binance, recently even said that 0.1 Bitcoin, that is just 1/10 of a Bitcoin, could soon be worth more than a house in the US. Just to clarify, the average price for a typical single-family home in the US is about $300,000 to $500,000, for example in a suburb in the Midwest, not in downtown Los Angeles, for instance. He also said that Bitcoin will rise to $500,000 to $1 million in this cycle.
To put it in the most straightforward and uncomplicated terms possible, making it easy to grasp and understand without any difficulty.
Incredible. And a trader also said on US television that Bitcoin could very easily rise to $250,000 to $350,000 per Bitcoin in this cycle.
I am a firm believer that it is going much, much higher from here. Think about corporate adoption. Corporate adoption is probably only about 2%. Central banks, only about 3%. Those are both going higher, much higher. Retail investors are going much higher. So look at it through, I'll leave off with this. Look at it through the market cap of Croft Bitcoin. That's around 2 trillion, let's say. Look at the market cap of gold. That's around 20 trillion. Maybe it doesn't have to be gold, but if it closes the gap to 50%, you're looking at $500,000 per Bitcoin. And I do think that in the near future, you're looking at 250, 350,000 pretty easily for crypto. There are a couple of things, a couple of hurdles, but I think those days of it losing 80% of its value and then rallying up are long gone. There are too many people looking for these assets.
And he said that on US television. That's incredible. And when the former CEO of Binance says that even 0.1 Bitcoin could be worth as much as a single-family house in the US, that's really a big deal. Do you understand what he's saying with that? He's not just assuming that Bitcoin will rise to $500,000 or $1 million per Bitcoin, but much, much higher. Because for 0.1 Bitcoin to be worth that much, Bitcoin would have to rise to $3 to $5 million per Bitcoin. And that could happen very soon. Think about the old narratives. Bitcoin as digital gold, as a currency you can use for everything. It used to be said that you could even buy a coffee with it thanks to the Lightning Network. And former CEO Changpeng Zhao responded to a post by a director at the US Federal Housing Finance Agency, the FHFA. He revealed that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, you might know them from the financial world, they're preparing proposals to allow Bitcoin to be used for buying real estate in the US with mortgages. And let me repeat that. Soon, you could use Bitcoin in the US to get a mortgage for a house. And what I don't understand now is, why hasn't the price of Bitcoin already risen to over $500,000 per Bitcoin? That's because of manipulation. Because the news we hear about crypto every day is just totally crazy and incredibly positive for the future. And I understand that people outside the market, outside of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, might not care about this at all, but you, as someone in the crypto world, should be shouting for joy. Remember, I've said before that something is going on, something is happening in the background. What we're seeing now, in my opinion, is only 1% of what's really happening. The price should actually be much, much higher because the news that comes out every 24 hours should make the market explode. After all, when a company announces that it is raising $100 million to buy a digital currency, that alone should be enough to get everyone or everything fired up. And when a company says it's raising $1 billion for Bitcoin, that should send us into orbit. But we hear the same thing every day, over and over again. More companies want to buy Bitcoin or are buying it, and yet prices aren't rising the way they really should. And once again, Changpeng Zhao, the former CEO of Binance, responded to a post from the head of the US Federal Housing Finance Agency who was talking about a proposal from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They want to include crypto in mortgage qualifications so you can buy a house in the US. The plan is for borrowers to be able to use their Bitcoin holdings as proof of financial reserves. Up until now, this was only possible with fiat money, savings accounts, investment accounts, or pension funds. And now people are still coming and saying that Bitcoin is worthless. We're witnessing the change right now. Think back to when Bitcoin first reached $70,000 per Bitcoin. All those analysts back then said, based on market data, the buyers, the lack of sellers, and the institutions that entered in 2021, these people already said that Bitcoin should have been worth $250,000 in 2021. That's just exactly what they said 4 years ago, you know?
So is Bitcoin a scam? It's decentralized. There's no CEO, it's about freedom. Money isn't just what drug dealers use now. You can hold your own money and no one can freeze it. Bitcoin is still a thing. This is just the beginning. I'm not buying that at all, bro. There will only ever be a total of 21 million Bitcoin in existence. Bitcoin just hit $100, I guess.
And do you really want to sit there and let yourself believe that nothing strange is happening right now? Think about it. All these companies, institutions, universities, or even governments are buying Bitcoin, some secretly, others officially using it, or even mining Bitcoin themselves. And then we also see news that two of the largest lenders in the world from the US, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, have proposed using Bitcoin for mortgages. What is actually going on here? What is happening right now? Why isn't the price already at 500,000? Just take a look at the purchases. You can't claim that people are selling when MicroStrategy, for example, is buying over $1 billion worth of Bitcoin every week. You can't say that it's the sellers, because we just heard that 30% of all Bitcoin that was still on exchanges was withdrawn over the past year. You can't talk about selling pressure, because the amount of Bitcoin on OTC markets has also completely collapsed. Something isn't right here. Of course, we will see in the future that we can use Bitcoin to buy real estate or even finance mortgages directly in the US. All of this is happening right now, and yet the price of Bitcoin still hasn't surpassed $200,000 or $500,000 per Bitcoin. Very strange. And at the same time, Christine Lagarde is warning about Bitcoin in Europe and is already preparing people for the digital euro.
If the day comes when we have the central bank digital currency, any digital euro, I will guarantee that the central bank will be behind it.
Totally crazy. What's happening? And if you own Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies and live in the EU, click the link in the description below the video, store your Bitcoin offline because Christine Lagarde won't stop.